Today's seminar is about acetylcholine functions and facts. This subject is in the study session 7. It's related to the membrane and receptor module. What is acetylcholine and how acetylcholine produced, how synthesized, or what's made acetylcholine? Of course, it's composed of two parts, acetyl-CoA and acetate. Acetyl-CoA and what? Choline. So by this, acetylcholine will produce. And what is this chemical compound? What's the importance of this? And what is related? When we say acetylcholine, mostly we are related to the parasympathetic system, but it's also released by other nerve terminals in the skeletal muscle, for example. Let us know some facts about acetylcholine use, or the cholinergic and anticholinergic use, or the action that do to the body, or what are the clinical use of this. You know, everyone, you may see someone when you go to the ophthalmic clinic or to the ophthalmologist, and the doctor do examination of the eye in order to see inside your eye. It will put a drop inside your eye. Why? In order to dilate the pupil. So the atropine that's used by ophthalmology is for what is a blocker of the acetylcholine, inhibit its action in order for the pupil to dilate. So this is one of the action or use of the anticholinergic. Most of you heard about the nerve agents that are used during war, during the chemical attack, gas attack that occurred. We know the Halabja attack. Kimyabarani Halabja. Ekelo gazane kabakar hatwach sarin. Of course, there are several gases. There's a use of mixture of the chemical compound of the nerve agents, like mustard and other. But sarin is among these chemical or the gas that are used as a nerve agent in order to cause killing effect. What is this sarin? It's also one of the drug or one of the chemical that affect the acetylcholine or interfere with the acetylcholine. We will take it later. Of course, you know it causes killing of the thousands of people, and it causes increase of the secretion from everywhere in the mouth, in the nose, in the bronchial. And it also causes pinpoint pupil. It's called pinpoint pupil. يعني constriction pupil بالبلي جانا بتشوك بيتو بيعلم pinpoint pupil. Do you know Botox? What is Botox? Botox, you know, nowadays is used widely in the cosmetic. And do you know what is Botox? It's a botulinum toxin from a bacteria, botulinum toxin, Clostridium botulinum. And this is used for what? They use now for what? It is injected to the muscle in order to relax the muscle. So used as a muscle relaxant. When the muscle becomes relaxed, there will be the wrinkle remove or disappear. That's why this is used, one of the use of this botulinum toxin. This is also act on the or interfere with the cholinergic. Atropa belladonna berries. I'm a type of berry. It's also called nightshade berries. This is it's a toxic. It's like a poison. Poison. It may cause death. Why? Because it contains atropine. Masha, atropa belladonna. Atropine طبعا رجعك صور تياتيك بويل شندن كبويل أنا بيت death. And you know atropine is a blocker of the what? Of the cholinergic. Cholinergic endinatanic or anticholinergic. Do you know one of the drugs that now they discovered in order to treat the Alzheimer's disease, which is one of the devastating disease and affect the old people? خۆتان زانن ئەڵزایمەر چ کێشەیەکی کە کەسێک تووشی ئەڵزایمەر و دیمێنشیا ئەوانە ئەبێت ئەگەر لە خۆی نامێنێت affect the cognitive function. Why? Because the cholinergic nerve is affected. There will be degeneration of the cholinergic nerve, depletion of the cholinergic nerve. cholinergic nerve كان deplete بكما بيتوا جماري كم بو طبعا acetylcholine كما بيتوا. So one of the drugs that used nowadays is for the treatment of the Alzheimer's disease is also affect the cholinergic either synthesis release or acetylcholine esterase inhibitor. Prevent degradation of the acetylcholine. So acetylcholine remain in the nerve terminal in the synaptic cleft in order to do its function. يعني فاكشي زورتر بوي زورتر بمعنى ورجيكي زورتر معناها بالacetylcholine. So it is not used for the treatment of the Alzheimer, but it prevents the progression of this disease. And now the progress قالوا زيادة التطور. So what are the cholinergic nerves? يكشت هي زور مهمة كبيزانن. أما كألين cholinergic nerve چی ئەگرێتەوە تەنها parasympathetic ناگرێتەوە ئاگاتان لەبێت. So we have the parasympathetic, we have parasympathomimic. کەڵێ parasympathetic کە ئەشڵێن cholinergic فەرقیان هەیە بۆ جێستە باسیەکەین کاتێکینە سەر باسی دڕەگەکان. کەڵێن parasympathomimic ئەو بەشە ناگرێتەوە cholinergic کە کارە کاتە سەر مەسڵەکان باشە ئەوەی لەسەر مەسڵ skeletal muscle ئاکتەکە. We have cholinergic nerve that supply muscle, skeletal muscle. Somatic afferent system, skeletal muscle. This is not related to the autonomic nervous system. So it is cholinergic. Why it's called cholinergic? So when we have cholinergic nerve means we have cholinergic neuron means it releases acetylcholine. Her nerve neuron acetylcholine release cholinergic. So it's not a must, it's parasympathetic. But why we relate mostly cholinergic nerve or acetylcholine to parasympathetic? Parasympathetic, all parasympathetic nerve release acetylcholine. Acetylcholine. We have also cholinergic, if you remember in the sympathetic presynaptic ganglia, presynaptic presynaptic ganglia and postsynaptic ganglia. And we said all the presynaptic ganglia release what? All the presynaptic neuron release what? Acetylcholine. So all of them is cholinergic. That's why this is also called cholinergic nerve. So this is also some of them not related to the parasympathetic. When the cholinergic become released, it will cause what? Depolarization to the postsynaptic. هر کمی که به sympathetic و یا parasympathetic. در شاک حرکت سرچی somatic nerve skeletal muscle depolarization چیه که calcium كذا troponin أو actually بتيجي muscle contraction calcium release and muscle contraction. Did you remember we have also acetylcholine release or the cholinergic neuron on the adrenal medulla? The adrenal medulla we have also cholinergic nerve. Why? Adrenal medulla previously or it is it's a modified ganglion يعني بيشتر وكو ganglion يكبو أيش وكو شون شيء من هي ليرة ganglion post ganglion من هي هموي pre ganglionic هي post ganglionic هي يعني أمش بيشتر هو suppose كراو كمش ganglion يبو بيد وهي هو بتشي modified to become adrenal medulla. That's why it also has cholinergic nerve and it releases acetylcholine to the chromaffin cell. كاتوا دانو chromaffin cell كان modified ganglion. Chromaffin cell that release release adrenaline or epinephrine. There are in the sympathetic, the neurotransmitter is norepinephrine or noradrenaline, but there are few exceptions. One of them is sweat gland. Sweat gland is جوازي فرقي هلقل آني ترى. لقل شيء لقل effect ركاني تركه بشيء بأدرينا بsympathetic supply. شيء أميش postsynaptic كشيء acetylcholine. That's why it is cholinergic, although it is under sympathetic control. Sympathetic stimulate يقابل cholinergic. دوای بستانە خەمەوە گرنگە کە باسیکەین بۆ دوای کە باسی cholinergic agonist و antagonistەکەین. So we have sympathetic and parasympathetic, and the previous session is about sympathetic, and you understood that there's sympathetic chain. That's why at the sympathetic chain there's a ganglia. Here it's synapse, the presynaptic neuron synapse at the synaptic in the sympathetic chain with what? With the postsynaptic neuron. Here a synapse. كاتب presynaptic nerve كان ما neuron كان ما شونن shorten. While postsynaptic كان شونن they are long. تاكو ذات organic. چون كبتني spinal cord وشيء هذا synapse. While it's opposite to the parasympathetic. Why? You can see the parasympathetic ganglion are located within the organ itself, within the effector organ itself. يعني لو شوية كاري لها كان فكان لو شوية ganglion هي زوج لنا مصل sorry لنا تشوكة خوياتي ترسموا مصلها هرشتك. Or in the cranial nerve, it's also near the organ, for example, the eye, the salivary gland, and so on. That's why it has long presynaptic ganglia while short postsynaptic ganglia. وش جوازية كتير لبيني شيء sympathetic و parasympathetic. So let's come to the acetylcholine synthesis. Let's see how acetylcholine synthesized. As we said, this is synthesized from acetyl-CoA and choline. But where these two come from? Where is acetylcholine? شلون درسته به? How acetylcholine produced, synthesized? acetylCoA چیه؟ كاتله زورتنا شو لا pyruvate درسته به. Pyruvate شو درسته به? Pyruvate. By pyruvate dehydrogenase it will form what? Form acetyl-CoA. By pyruvate dehydrogenase. But where the pyruvate come from? أوش طبعا the oxidation هذا by glycolysis. So you should have a glucose in order for the for pyruvate to be formed and for acetyl-CoA to be formed. هذا glucose man هذا and glycolysis. So and where the glucose come from? طبعا transporter man هي glucose يعني تناول nerve وكذا. What about the choline? A choline لتشويه. Choline is an essential component in the food, in the diet. The body is also capable of producing choline, but its production is negligible, so not so significant amount. يعني أو amount يدرس كازورنية كمان. زيادة لبرو لخواتنا واليقين. Most of the food containing choline, like egg, fish, are rich of the choline. Also, the poultry and even the vegetables contain fruit and vegetables contain choline. As we said, this is an integrated system. When we said the new curriculum, an integrated curriculum, we should integrate this session to the other session, this module to the other module. Choline, what's the importance of choline? The previous session, there are membrane phospholipid. What are the name? Phosphatidylcholine and sphingomyelin. In the synthesis of these types of phospholipids, which are important membrane phospholipids. That's why choline is very important. It's for the formation of the plasma or cell membrane. It also component of the cell membrane. Of the lipid, of course, of the phospholipid portion of the cell membrane. So it's also used the choline in the production of acetylcholine. What is the enzyme that produced this or stimulate this reaction? To enzyme choline acetyl transferase. Of course, there is some plants that affect this enzyme. But enzyme zorbe plant can do شوية شكل zorbe بوش يلان كخواردني جياي خوي باش يا زور كسي خوا أبدا توكسيستي كي نزاني أخواتو نابي بكاري بيني بو يخواردني جياي زور جارلك لاني ببيتو يجهر يكون زور كز نازاني خلقي عامله بكاري أنا مقيشة جياي هيك كيمي ما دي كيميائي يعني نازاني زوربي أو ما دانا وجهر لوانو دروس كراوة بويا وي أو شتيكات أو الدكتورة هي شو كاد لبحث كان بكاري يعني by using the nanoparticles and finding that toxicity, analyzing that toxicity for these plants, these chemicals, and find which material inside or which chemical component is useful and use that one to the person. يعني بتنها أو بكابيني كسود بخشة. يعني هو كل أنا تنشتي سود بخشة كي والله ما قال لي أنا أكو poison أقدر برجيك صور بكرة. So we have choline acetyl transferase. This will cause production of acetylcholine. What about the degradation of acetylcholine? كات acetylcholine شيء أبى توابت بتشي أبى acetate and choline. By what? By which enzyme? Acetylcholine esterase. It is a very important enzyme, and you can see in the in the subsequent slides, we can see how this acetylcholine esterase become a target of different drugs in order to cure, or even as a target of the nerve agent that we discussed to kill humans. هروهينش insecticide كان pesticide كان زوري acetylcholine esterase inhibitor بس زور potent يبغى كارنا كسر إنسان كارنا كسر human. If it become so potent that affect the acetylcholine esterase inhibitor and become so potent الرجيك يزور acetylcholine esterase بكريتوا وهنا بهذا it could cause killing effect and cause death in the human. What about the acetate and choline? The choline reuptake into the neuron. أجتونا neuron كان reuptake على presynaptic terminal. Reuptake by a transporter. We have a transporter that transport choline. Unlike other product of the neurotransmitter, it's also under what by the NA gradient. عيني شتسود لتشبينه NA gradient. We have a high uptake transporter. We have a high uptake transporter that transport choline into the nerve terminal. Reuptake يكاجاري كيكا وكاري إنتوا. هروا choline وقتك كيا diffuser كا أو choline reuptake كا. ويكوت ما يملا داي تايخوين وداي تشتغلوا. And what about the acetate? Acetate diffuse in both into the both terminal and into the surrounding tissue. Acetate أكلا أنا بكابي أنا تودرس كردنيشي acetylcholine. So what about the transmission process? There's a signal in a nerve كتير signal أماتشيا أما terminal كيا synaptic terminal أما nerve دوما بابلين أما أنشيا تكيبهم على وجه أما effector organ و nerve دوكاتا أما كيا periganglionico postganglionico. So we have a signal. This red one is acetylcholine, and these are the physical. And what about this blue, this green one? It's a receptor for acetylcholine. And what about this? These are the acetylcholine esterase. Acetylcholine esterase هو اللي رشحها لنا كتبتكبهم لكوية زيادة postsynaptic membrane. In the postsynaptic membrane near to the receptors in order to take action immediately. هربويك acetylcholine كا لهلا أكتي خويك release بويا سربت ويجي acetylcholine esterase will cause what? Degradation of the acetylcholine. So when the signal comes, what will happen? There will be a release of the exocytosis and release of the acetylcholine, and acetylcholine bind to the receptor, and then what will happen after its action? It will the acetylcholine esterase of course cause conformational change in the channel. Later on, channel betoy opening canal sodium metashuro about the depolarization of neurona, and later on and formation of the second messenger, of course. And what will happen later? There will be degradation by acetylcholine esterase. Hydrolysis second. Acetylcholine. What will happen to the choline? It will reuptake to the presynaptic terminal, and it will bind with by the reaction with the acetyl-CoA. It will form acetylcholine again, and it will be transferred to the synaptic vesicle in order to store again for release. There's something about the choline transporter. Really, it is not present on this plasma membrane, but it is translocated to there during the calcium release or during the transmission of the action potential. Katika action potential boya inja ama translocated again. It's found that it's also present inside the vesicle, this choline transporter. But when there is action potential reach to this area, what will happen when this vesicle bind to the membrane and cause exocytosis? At the same time, this choline transporter translocated into the membrane, and in order to retake more choline zorter transporter carbonal terminal vesicle. So this again, when action potential come, of course, like that of the release of the norepinephrine is the same. When action potential come, there will be what activation of voltage-gated calcium channel. So when it's open, the calcium increase inside. The calcium level calcium-induced exocytosis. The vesicle bind to this membrane, this anatomy membrane, and cause exocytosis and release of its neurotransmitter, which is acetylcholine. This is at which nerve terminal ama nicotinica. Dabaroichi man here, abinen, canal man here, canal chia, yellow cationic canal. Monovalent cationic channel. Monovalent because it only lead or allow the monovalent ion to pass through. تنهاواني برقي يكيكا و زيادة وتمان كتايون كان كاتي زيادة هاي صوديوم got to inside and cause depolarization. اشتيك من هيك بس ما كرتت من شيء بوتسولينيوم توكسين. شيء أكاد botulinum toxin كوتمان بوتوكس بكاريا وتمان انجكتك يا بمصوا بيت مصر ريلاكسانتو أبيت وياي كارين كل ديارنا منه شيء كات عشان كي شيء أبيت وياي it will interfere with the calcium-induced exocytosis. So this is the action of botulinum toxin. Interfere with calcium-induced exocytosis of acetylcholine. كاتا interfere هيك لم أكشنانا يعني لكالسيوم ريليز أتاكو exocytosis. كاتا ناهلا تشيبه ناهلا release acetylcholine. So if acetylcholine not released in the muscle, it will cause what? It will cause muscle relaxation of the muscle. طبعا أما كومبلكسة ريليزي acetylcholine لو كاتو كالسيوم induce بتون أو synaptic vesicles bind the carbon membrane to exocytosis. It is complex action. Of course, here at the beginning we can start here. Import of the neurotransmitter. أما بناو vesicle طبعا هاي لقل شيء إيش أنتيبورترا باشا فتوه كويك لا نور أدرينالين بس ما كبها ماشي ولا neurotransmitter كاني نور أبينفرين كواتشون neurotransmitter كلنا أو vesicle كوب كاتو برجي كيزور كوب كاتوا تشيكا بروتونا كاتدرو it's antiporter. By this the acetylcholine accumulated here. This is true for most of the transport or neurotransmitter. After that, this is the first later movement to the active zone. The active zone. At the active zone, there is some docking and calcium sensing protein. We have the protein that sends this calcium, this large amount of calcium present in the terminal. So it will cause what? By this binder vesicle, and this will cause exocytosis or release of the acetylcholine to the terminal. At the same time, what it will do, the vesicle go back, by endocytosis vesicle so this is the process of release. So botulinum toxin affect this. Okay, it interferes with this. That's why acetylcholine not release and cause muscle relaxation. This is the botulinum toxin. As we said, it's from Clostridium botulinum. It's a toxin, but it's not only used for the Botox or for cosmetic. It has also other use. One of the important use for the muscle dyskinesia or dystonia. Dyskinesia يعني abnormal muscle movement. هذا كذا كده abnormal muscle movement يعني involuntary abnormal muscle movement or repetitive muscle movement but that's خوشیانیه ناتوان کنترلی کن بۆیە زۆر مهمە کە چی بۆ بەکارێنن this botulinum toxin is also important for this dyskinesia so it will prevent the acetylcholine release acetylcholine remain here so no exocytosis and it will cause muscle relaxation. So what are the physiological importance of acetylcholine? Let's come to the function of acetylcholine. What are the functions of acetylcholine? Of course, it has several important functions and regulation of the number of tissues act on the number of tissue. Not so diffuse like that of the sympathetic, not present in all tissue, but it's present in the most of the tissue and it has action. But another difference with the sympathetic is that the sympathetic, as discussed by Dr. Talar, sympathetic causes more diffuse action than parasympathetic. Why? Because from the central, when the sympathetic become activated, all the tissue that under the action of the sympathetic become activated. But that of the parasympathetic mostly local. No mass discharge. It's not under the mass discharge like what do by the sympathetic. But there are some action of the parasympathetic that will do together or simultaneously. I'll discuss this action. So what are the functions of parasympathetic system? We can start from the brain. Effective parasympathetic brain is important for cognition. As we said, cholinergic, the brain important for cognition, for mood, for memory. And what about the action on the eye? On the eyes. Action in the search. چی ئەکات چەند شتێکمان باس کرد لە سیمپەتاتیکە ئەم بە پێچەوانەوەیە یەکێ لەوانە چییە وتمان ئاکشنی لەسەر ئای کاتە سەر چ مەسڵە کۆنستریکتەکە the sphincter muscle of the eye so called constriction of the pupil. What's the importance of constriction of the pupil? What is pupil? When we say pupil, bilbilei çav çiye? Bilbilei çav tişuakê çiye? What's the tissue of the pupil? Could you tell me? لچه مصلب لچه تشویه بکاتو بالبلی چاوما pupil لچه تشویه بکاتو pupil is a hole inside our eye. It's made by what? hole که لبینی چیه iris کاتیکا this is the iris اما iris چیه باشه من لونه کی چاو ونیا خشان دارن یکی وای کالن چای سوسو چای روشه وای چیه iris. There's a pore or a hole in between. So, قاعدة هيك تشوي كتنيا قاعدة هولك pupil. بس بوشي وامي أقال لبيت هاكاتك كتشاي عزيت يا جاي أشتكي بركوية ترسن كبرسن تريشاي كتشون كخولة أشيت أنا ولا أنا أسانتر بتشيت بس كاين تريشاو بس طبعا سرو أمكن دكتور باي هيك دايكوشي وكرتيك دايكوشي. Okay. So what is the importance of the constriction of pupil? And this is as a reflex or involuntary. We constrict our pupil when we're looking at the sun directly. Say the sun okay. Involuntary constrict our pupil. يعني أجمع خمانية parasympathetic reflex constrict pupil in order to decrease the amount of light that enter and hit the retina. So it may cause damage to the retina. So it is important. It's one of the importance of constriction of pupil. طبعا كconstriction pupil يعني كيف؟ iris يدا يشو ليرة سيدي كاتي كدالي تبي parasympathetic ليرة bulging أبي. We have the pictures. I'll show you. Another effect of the parasympathetic on the eye is accommodation or the focal lens accommodation for near vision. It will cause increase in the convexity of the lens. This accommodation is mostly or almost always under parasympathetic control. So when there is no parasympathetic, there will be flattening of the lens. Parasympathetic action the lens become flattened. parasympathetic action cause increase in the convexity of the lens and accommodation. طبعا باجي convexity lens زۆربەی چیەکە سوودی چییە بۆ near vision واکە کە ئیمەیجەکە لەسەر ڕێتینا دروست بێت تا convexityەکەی زیاتر بێ شتەکە هاتۆتە پێشتر لەبەرەوە پێویستەکە کە چی بکە کە ئەیشکێنێتەوە لایتەکە بێ لەسەر چی لەسەر ڕێتینا دروست بێت نەک لە شوێنێکی دوورتر دروست بێ یا لە شوێنێکی نزیکتر ئۆبجەکتەکە فار بێ یان near بێ تەئسیرەکە. So the image should be on the retina directly in order to make a clear or vision. يعني vision كي باش تهدر. This is the effect on the eye. What are the other effects? It has effect on the lacrimal or lacrimation, on the salivation, and on all the gland, most of the gland of the body. It will cause increase in the secretion of most of the gland of the body. Secretion is always زيادة. Lacrimation زيادة, salivation زيادة, gastric acid secretion زيادة, enzyme كان زوري secretion كان زيادة. أما كيف parasympathetic. إذا بلين cholinergic چیتر زيادة sweating. كوتمان parasympathetic بس sweating ناكن. But we said parasympathetic has no effect, direct effect on sweating. Melancholy cholinergic fiber, as we said, the sweating is or sweat gland under the control of the sympathetic, but when we say cholinergic or we use drug that is cholinergic agonist, it affects also sweating, to increase in the sweating. كاتا همون gland كان ولكن استمر كي cross فيهم كم بس ليا جوان درناتي چون كي مشاشة كزيادة بكاريني. So we have these glands, the parotid gland, the submandibular gland, the lacrimal gland, all these under the effect of parasympathetic. Pesha mushte ema parasympathetic lekyo derece la spinal cord from where what are the fibers from where the location of the fibers is where in the location is cell body preganglionic fiber kan man lekyo la crânio sacral. He sympathetic lekyo bu thorax or lumbar. Am başa kağıt am başa bu يابو sympathetic. Well, crânio level sacral is for the parasympathetic fiber or parasympathetic cell body. So the fibers were released from here or emerged from here. There or that attack وجهة organ كاني كsupply كeffector organ أو organ supply كبيان effector organ. cranial كان شي معناها طبعا معناه cranial nerve. شو cranial nerve معناها parasympathetic fiber إتيايا. أوانيش كي هيك لوانش يا oculomotor nerve which is the third cranial nerve. Same cranial nerve oculomotor. كتياكا supply كياكا. أم supply ciliary muscle كابت هوي lens accommodation. It also supply the sphincter muscle and cause constriction. We have we have the cranial nerve 7, which is facial nerve. Facial nerve supply كياكا supply gland كان معناها supply lacrimal gland كان سلوكتشاو and also supply submandibular glands and submaxillary gland, and we have the parotid gland not supplied by the facial nerve but supplied by the other nerve which is glossopharyngeal. So we have also glossopharyngeal nerve which is the ninth cranial nerve glossopharyngeal. It supplies the parotid and also it has supply to the carotid body for blood pressure regulation. We have another cranial nerve which is cranial nerve of 10, which is the most important one. Chia vagus nerve. Why vagus nerve is the most important cranial nerve? About 75% of the parasympathetic is vagal nerve. Kata fiber can man حتى بنجي لنا vagal nerve. So vagal nerve is the most important parasympathetic nerve. والsupply سيري كان كوكو أكان السيرة بس من كبكان supply كوكو. This is the vagus nerve, the fifth cranial nerve. The سروة هاتو supply كوكو, supply heart, supply aortic arch that contain baroreceptor and important for blood pressure regulation. So supply heart and supply also supply what the gastric gland, the smooth muscle, the GIT تقريبا زوربي GIT هتاخد the first half of the colon intestine. It also أما كاتت أما أبيت هو شيء functional كيش يعني بيقلنا شيء أكاد كاتا بابي نسر بيقاز نير وثمانية كمشت supply تيجا أكيد لانا تيبو أورتيك أرت blood pressure regulation أكا عشان بارو receptor تيا سنسي تيجا pressure change أكاد كاتا pressure صوربه تيجا signal نيري بود medulla center كده medulla vasomotor center أبيت هو يجي sympathetic suppression أكا نهي على إتر blood pressure صورت به heart rate صوربه. It also has effect on the heart or have the supply to the heart. Sinoarterial not supply, arterial supply, AV not supply, but it has no supply to the ventricle. So it will cause decrease in the heart rate. Hoichiaka Vegas nerve normally tonic ayat boji IT tonic ayat. Yani زيادة tonic واني هذا بيلم basal tone. Heart is under both sympathetic and parasympathetic tone. When we relieve the parasympathetic tone, the heart rate increase. Kata ehaleta sinoarterial node بشويك يشتوتونا وفارين rate يزوربه ببيت هو tachycardia abnormal tachycardia. هو parasympathetic وsympathetic هردوكيان. And what are the effects on the stomach on the GIT? It will in the stomach it increase gastric acid secretion, as we said. Acid secretion is important for the stomach for the digestion. And it also increase secretion in the GIT gastrointestinal tract, increase propulsion. Asantir palbaçı obine Olasakobine palba Olasakobine brota khwaro urda propulsion increase and also secretion inside the GIT increase. Ama hamuy by the vagus nerve. Only by the vagus nerve it has so many functions. First, our pchina sar chansteki kahel sar vagus nerve. Emotman lacrimation zia aka. أما أنا بقول دون فكيكو بباس بانك lacrimation زيا كان salivation زيا كان طبعا ما هم يقدرين saliva بوشي كرينجا بو swallowing ماشى بو chewing swallowing يست بس saliva بوي بالله سكب كات خوارو أسان تركض بيت زور سودي تريشي هي حتى antibacterial activity ماشي. We'll come to another the sacral part that is the ما هم يجيبوا cranial part. What about the sacral part of the parasympathetic? It has neurons that affect what? It affects the bladder. It will affect also this part of the GIT that's responsible for defecation on the rectal control. It supplies the rectal sphincter. What will happen to the rectal sphincter if parasympathetic become activated? The sphincter, relax a bit for defecation to take place and also for the bladder. Although it will cause increase in the tonic contraction of the detrusor muscle of the bladder, urinary bladder, while there comes a contraction before urination to take place, but at the same time it will cause relaxation of the sphincter for urination. طبعا شي معناها بيش قالوا أما أنا بسكن internal sphincters. But we also have external sphincters. That's why our defecation and urination is or voiding is under the control of what or conscious control. Control conscious. That's why this is one of the possibility why during frightening, especially in the child, when there's frightening, what will happen? There's voiding. This is one of the possibility. Why? Because there's a center in the hypothalamus that's responsible for the parasympathetic action or the parasympathetic action of the voiding and defecation. And this center is also under the control of the prefrontal cortex, under the conscious control. Again, conscious control anytime when there is sufficient amount of urine in the bladder or sufficient amount of feces present, what will happen? There will be urination and defecation. If there's no this conscious control. But why the frightening cause voiding of urine, especially in the child? Why? Because this is the limbic system چی activate به و اگر سیگنال زوده نری بو او prefrontal cortex باس ماکر كواتا prefrontal cortex زیاتر مشغولة به limbic system كلاقبة شو emotional زورتر أنا مشغولة بأوش هر أوش كاتي قلقية كاتي exam has the urination is زورتر but this is also one of the possibility because of that. So the limbic system will send signals, so many signals to this prefrontal cortex conscious reflex, so it will lose the control to the this parasympathetic action. Got to lose the control of that. Unconscious control of the voiding and defecation. شتێکی کە لە ڤێگەسا گرنگە کە باسیکەین چییە؟ لە ڤێگەس شتێکتان بیستوە vasovagal attack. What is vasovagal attack or syncope? ئەکیدم زۆر بەتان بیستوتانە کاتێکەیەکی ئەڵێن خوێنێ پێ بینێ ئەبورێتەوە هەموو کەسێ وای لێ نایە بەس بەعزێک لەوانەیە کە خوێنە بینێ ئەبورێتەوە. What is this vasovagal attack? This is due to the action of the vagus also. But this is due to what? When there is, for example, see something like blood or due to fear, due to pain, something, what will happen? There will be sympathetic طبعا كان face زور complex, but the first one is activation of the sympathetic on زور activation بو parasympathetic حولاياك sympathetic action كم كاتو in order to protect the heart from functioning too much, from beating too much, from delivering blood too much. What it will do? It will cause parasympathetic override the sympathetic. Got it? Parasympathetic override the sympathetic أو active sympathetic suppress أبد هو شيء splanting vasodilation blood vessel vasodilate there will be decreased blood perfusion, decreased perfusion to the brain, cerebral perfusion كبيرة blood كم بوجه أو كسر ليه أكبر fainting كهمي بوجهنا few seconds. So this is vasovagal attack. This is also due to vagus nerve. هیچ من بیر نچوله مانه لا فانکشن کن را فانکشن زوره و بین سر أنا رسمشم داناوه. This is again the radial muscle of the eye. أما iris ما تيا أما pupilla هلا كي كباس ما كرت ولا كي تيا أما باش من لوانا كي تا كتيا iris لشي بكاتوا composed of muscle. These are the radial fiber, radial muscle that under the control of what? Sympathetic, and the sphincter muscle, the circular one, under the control of the parasympathetic. How the contraction of these cause pupil constriction, meiosis, or pupil dilation, mydriasis. أجسدي كمان كلمات parasympathetic شيء أكا pupil constriction. شون sphincter muscle مادام circular كاديك contraction كا pupil بشوكة بيتو أم هلا بشوكة بيتو كوني تشاو pupil بشوكة. So this is parasympathetic. Well, sympathetic شيء أكا كاتك أما contraction كا short بيت fiber كان يبتوي dilation of pupil. This is how the light enter the retina. كاتك emote كاتك pupil بشوكة بيتوا. چند روناکیه چند تجربه باید متوانم گرینگا بودی که کسیش تک روناکی زوره که روناکی زور پیپول دست کبید و بچو کبید و می هایت کی زور نیاله تینا دامیج نکه. هر وقت کاتی متوان اتروپین که بکاری یعنی پیپول بمشي دایلیت به سری کن. چون دایلیت بود اما باید درک بتوانی سری چاود که روناکی کی زور بچه تجربه بتوانی نكر أم بشيء تاود أو بتوان زور بي وسير أسبكتي تاود ببينه لأنه كرتنا كشبكية رتنا شبكية كوري. This is also the focusing of the lens for near vision. بتوان بوي لايتك بجواني يميجك لسر رتنا هذا كذا. This is the supply of the heart by the parasympathetic and bisympathetic. جوازكان شيبو supply sympathetic supply also the ventricle while parasympathetic not supply the ventricle. Both of them supply the sinoatrial and AV node that cause the beating or changing in the in the chronotropy of the heart يعني beating heart رأيتكي كموزياء بلام parasympathetic حقي contraction ventricular muscle only sympathetic has effect on the contraction بلام كاتي طبعا sympathetic كم بيتو contraction كم بيتو cardiac output كم بيتو طبعا يكشتي كمان هي موت من سويت gland parasympathetic حقينية هرا blood vessel كان من زور بيوانية although there are some relation of parasympathetic to dilation of the blood vessel but it is not so significant it's mostly due to release of nitrous oxide with the acetylcholine so not its direct effect أوش هرشتكي complex يعني خطان زانن this system, especially the autonomic nervous system, is so complex. Sometimes both systems يعني بيني هردو هنا كان يبين الرئاسة كان كبهاي هردو effect كان بيني كهي هردو system كيا. Sometimes their effect mixed بيني mixed response كيا دركة. It's very complex. Sometimes طبعا لما كباسي بديا كين باسي أكشني شوية كين باسي system كين ما بيرلا بس تنهالو system كينو. When we are discussing about the subject, we only think of this subject, but at the same time, there's stress, there's cortisol release, there's other hormone release. يعني أي أوانات شيء كان. هل يكو action يكوي هي. بتناوى single system وريجري يا single product كلو كاتر release وريجري. همان كاتا يكو ملشتي تركاركات. Even different type of stress affect different neurotransmitter release. Norepinephrine دريا epinephrine. موتمان norepinephrine كم ترلا epinephrine دريا. والله type stress كارك آية norepinephrine توزع زيادة release بيانا. حتى يعني زور complex. جازان خواي قولة شيء تروس كده. تاكو زيادة شتينا سر زاني تا زيادة زي زيادة يعني تكالي خاصة تصورنا. راستي. يعني there are so many things inside the book you can see it's written there is controversy on it it is not still find or it is suggestive يعني الله وين أنا كوابي a possibility of that يعني تنها ليك كتاب خاصة لبيزيكا كان بيكرو سيني كان جار له برايا أكيد لهال برايا كأو أبيني even for the things that known يعني لاني subject يعني كدوزراوي شتو لاني فتريكي كشد بدوزرته as a new pathway discovered and so on